It's double game week time, but the big question is, should we be free hitting in 29 or even wildcarding now? I'm going to be discussing all of that in today's video. So as always, make sure you drop a like and of course, smash that subscribe button. And enough chatting, let's get into today's video. So first up, here's how I got on with my team. 82 points that Arsenal game, coming in clutch. Unbelievable performance from Arsenal, but importantly, the double clean sheet coming in for Gabriel and Saliba. Disappointing not to get a goal from either of those, but I would take the 6 points apiece and run. A big green arrow to 97k in the world. We're slowly getting towards that top 50k, which was always the target, and then what will be afterwards. But 82 points, the transfer of Hit to Son paid off, and some other big returns from the likes of Phil Foden. Saka could have been even more if he didn't come off at halftime, and of course Haaland with that late goal. Areola on the bench with a 13-pointer, but for those that done the same, I think the decision was correct. If he doesn't save that penalty, then you're looking at a 2 to 4-pointer, and Dubravka looks like the genius move, so do not be stressing about that. But look, 82 points, I am more than happy with this. And now the big decision is, what direction do I take this team? Do I free hit in game week 29? Do I wildcard in game week 28? We need to discuss all of that, so let's get into it. So the reason why game week 28 is so important is because, of course, it is a double game week. For those that didn't know, you can see on the fixtures here, Bournemouth have an unbelievable double game week against Sheffield United, who have just conceded 6 goals, and Luton. And then Luton themselves have a double game week against Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. Now, what makes it really interesting is, obviously trying to target this double game week is quite important for a lot of FPL managers, but then also understanding how you're going to navigate game week 29, because as you can see on your screens, it is a blank game week. The only teams that are playing are those that you can see on your screen. So Luton, West Ham, Forest, Fulham, Burnley, Spurs, Villa and Brentford. Those are the only two teams playing in blank game week 29. So obviously, if you are planning on free hitting in game week 29, then you can start to buy Bournemouth players this week. However, if you plan on not free hitting in game week 29, it is counterintuitive to be buying Bournemouth players going into this weekend, because you're simply buying players that have a double, which is great, but then they blank the following game week, and it's going to give you some serious problems in your team. So that's why deciding in this week what you want to do with your chip strategy is really, really important. So we're going to come on to the pros and cons in a minute, but you do need to take note of the fixtures that are coming up, because, for example, West Ham this game week at home against Burnley, a lot of people will view that as a fantastic fixture to bring in somebody like a Jared Bowen. So this could be the entry point for you, especially if you're planning to not free hit in game week 29. Again, all depends on your strategy. Let's get into the pros and cons. So here I've brought up the pros and cons for free hitting in game week 29. Now again, I have to base this kind of off my own team just to give it a little bit of context, so hopefully you can resonate with it. So the pros for me of free hitting in game week 29 include, I get to field 11 players without points hits. I think that's really important right now, because with my team, I'm currently sat there with 4 or 5 players that play in game week 29, and with couple of free transfers, I can get to 7, but then I need to take serious points hits to get anywhere near a team that has the essential players in it to cover off those that are going to be free hitting. Whereas if I just free hit, I get rid of all that stress, and I can have 11 of the best players available alongside a bench, which I think is really important, because there's no guarantees that if you get to 9 players with a -8, that all of them even going to play. Injuries have been very, very common this season, and you might be required to have your bench. That doesn't exist. Also, targeting Bournemouth's double in 28. If you plan on free hitting in 29, then you can pile in on those Bournemouth players this week, whether it be a defender, a goalkeeper, even a differential like Semenyo. As I've mentioned before, if you plan on not free hitting in game week 29, you can't really touch those Bournemouth players, because it doesn't help you to field an 11 in that game week 29. And last up, it means that I don't have to sell premium assets. When I've looked at strategies of not free hitting in game week 29, what it has meant that I've had to sell is a Foden, an Erling Haaland, and sometimes I think of it, and is it worth selling one of the best players in the league like Phil Foden for a player that maybe doubles or just simply has a game in game week 29? That is the issue that I have right now, because of course doing that means I'm going to lose a lot of value in those players. Now, it's not all positive about free hitting. Some of the negatives: underwhelming free hit draft. We're going to come on to a free hit draft later, but it's safe to say the pool of teams that you have to select from aren't the most exciting. So we do need to cover that off, and it forces a wildcard later in the season. I think if you're going to free hit in 29, it isn't really that beneficial to then use your wildcard in 30 or 31. You are then kind of postponing your wildcard until maybe game week 34 or game weeks 35, which I'm absolutely fine with doing so, because what it can do is it can make sure that your bench boost in 37 is in a really good position. So there are pros and cons of using your wildcard later on in the season. I think the general consensus is it's not great to use your wildcard in game week 35 with only 4 game weeks worth of value from it, but that is how you kind of read into the wildcard. So let me give you a quick pros and cons of not free hitting in game week 29. So in terms of not free hitting in game week 29, again, we've covered off quite a few of these, but just to give it another perspective, the pros of me just going through to game week 29 with no free hit include I get to keep the free hit for the double in 34. Now, for those that don't know, there are projections for there to be a small double game week for the likes of Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Man United, and that could be a really good opportunity to use the free hit where the pool of players are going to be a lot more attractive than what we have in game week 28. And also what it means we get to invest in Luton for the double game week. It is kind of a catch-22. If you free hit in 29, you can buy Bournemouth, but you don't really want to buy Luton. And then on the other hand, if you plan on not free hitting in game week 29, Luton you have to steam into because they play in game week 29 and they double in game week 28. And if you're of the opinion that Luton are a really good team to buy, then this is obviously a good thing. Now, the negatives of me doing this, and again, we've kind of covered this off for my team. If I avoid the free hit in 29, I am having to take a -8 just to get to 9 players. And there's no guarantee that in that period, I don't have an injury arise and I'm suddenly dropped down to 8 players or maybe even 7 with no bench. I think a lot of people are saying that the free hit in 29 doesn't look good. And I agree, the pool of players that we're selecting from isn't great. However, if managers are taking a -8 or a -12 to get to 8 or 9 players in their team, straight away your free hit draft is 8 to 12 points up on other players' teams, and you also have those 2 players that they don't own. So straight away, I think there is maybe a 16-point advantage just using your free hit against managers that are taking multiple points hits to get just a similar team that you own. The other thing, investing in Jarrod Bowen for game week 28 does look great at home against Burnley, but the only caveat I do need to mention is that they are playing in the Europa League on Thursday, away in Germany against Freiburg. They then play Burnley on Sunday, followed by the second leg on Thursday. So I do think Bowen is a great investment this week, but I don't think it's all sunshine and rainbows. I do think that is going to be a bit of a trickier game for West Ham with the introduction of the first and second leg of the Europa League either side. So we do need to be cautious of that. And last up, as I mentioned, if we go for no free hit and I start to sell off Haaland and Foden and all these players, we are going to lose a lot of value in those premium assets. Obviously, we're wildcarding 30 or 31 and buy them back, but that's kind of the premise there. I'm having to buy them back at a more expensive price to accommodate some Luton and Bournemouth players. When I bring it all together, I do feel like maybe just free hitting in game week 29 in my position makes a lot of sense. It means I get to keep all those premium assets. And it also means that I get to bring in the best 11 for 29 and then look to prioritise Mo Salah from game week 30 onwards. But we will come on to my transfer plans in a second. So in terms of game week 28 transfers in isolation, as I've already discussed, I think one of the best attacking options you can bring in is going to be Jarrod Bowen, especially if you are looking to maybe not free hit in game week 29. It ticks a lot of boxes, but do remember there is slight concern about that Europa League fixture only 4 days earlier. Now, in terms of the Bournemouth and Luton defenders, because I think that's really where a lot of us are looking to invest this week. First and foremost, I think Neto is a great investment at Bournemouth. I think he is, in terms of bonus points, probably better than the defenders. But these are the 3 that we need to consider. At Bournemouth, I think there are 2, Kerkez or Zabanije. We may get some news that Senesi is available, but I'd be astonished if he is back. So I think it's a deliberation between these 2. However, they're both the same price, and there's not really much in the underlying numbers. Neither are massive goal threats or creative monsters in their teams. You can see the underlying numbers here. XG per 90, 0.03 for Zabanije, 0.02 for Kerkez, and once again, the expected assist is minimal for both. Bonus points, neither are massively bonus point magnets either. So I think you pick your poison here. For me, Zabanije playing every minute so far this season, I would just go for the safer option. If Kerkez had some great underlying numbers similar to Doughty, he would be the obvious pick, but realistically, I want to go for the player that has guaranteed minutes. And although it's boring, I think Zabanije ticks a lot of the boxes for this double game week. So if you're going for Bournemouth, Zabanije would be my number one pick. And as you can see, I've only included one Luton defender on the screen. And that's because I only think there's one that you can buy. And that is going to be Doughty. Now, slightly more expensive at 4.7 million. But I think he does justify it. We saw it in game week 27. Even though Luton conceded, he got an assist from a set piece for Colton Morris. And when we look at the underlying numbers, they are decent considering he does play for Luton, no offence. XG 0.07, not amazing, but XA 0.22. And importantly, he is good on the bonus, 0.52 bonus per 90 minutes. And he's also got decent expected FPL points at 4.61. So if you're going for Luton, there's only one player I'll consider, and that is going to be Doughty. I think he ticks a lot of boxes. And again, if you're planning on not free hitting in 29, I think Doughty is almost essential for your teams. Because even though I expect Luton to concede, wouldn't be a surprise at all if he picks up 1 or 2 assists over that period. So completely depends on what your strategy is. For me, Zabanije is the man that I want to invest in with a free hit 29. Otherwise, Doughty is by far and away the best defender to buy. Okay, so taking a look to how my game week 28 team is looking with no transfers right now, here is the team. I have 3.4 million in the bank, 1 free transfer. And as we discussed, I am pretty confident I'm going to free hit in game week 29. We're going to come on to how my team would look in 29 and beyond after this section, but I wanted to show you what it's looking like without any transfers. I'm pretty content with how the team's looking. Pedro Porro will obviously be dependent on his injury status, but with my planned transfer, he would be moved to the bench regardless. Gabriel Saliba, more than happy with. They are an elite defence, and Areola at home against Burnley. Now, the only -4 that I'm considering this game week is potentially a goalkeeper move from Dubravka to Neto to give myself double Bournemouth in goal. I think that's good because in game week 30, it gives me a good fixture at home against Everton as well. And remember, I am free hitting in game week 29 most likely. So that is a plan -4. But the transfer that I'm pretty confident I'm going to make is a very boring one. Ake to Zabanije. Get myself a Bournemouth defender for Sheffield United at home and Luton at home, knowing that he helps my team in game week 30 as well with that home game against Everton. And then I mentioned it's just a case of whether I get Neto in goal. So Ake to Zabanije makes a lot of sense. I don't really want Ake long term with the upcoming Man City games that they have and the blank in game week 29. So my team would look like this, but with Zabanije instead of Pedro Porro, with him moving to the bench. Midfield, I'm really happy with right now. And again, going for this strategy means I don't have to sell Phil Foden. If I went for a no free hit strategy, what I would have had to have done this week is I would have had to have sold Garnacho to go to Jarrod Bowen. And then I would have benched Phil Foden this week. Now, I get it. Liverpool is a tough game. But when you're the most informed player in the league right now, I think it's criminal for me to be benching Phil Foden for a -4 for Jarrod Bowen. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all for my team. So pretty content with this. Making that move. Captaincy, I don't think we need to overthink it. Solanke with 2 home games, Sheffield United and Luton, is a no-brainer. And if you have a triple captain available, I would also consider doing it that week. On penalties, guaranteed minutes subject to that injury, I think it's a no-brainer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Last up, I want to go through how my team would look for the next 3 or 4 game weeks to give you a real understanding on my thought process. So last up, as I mentioned, I wanted to give you a bit of an idea on what my team is looking like for game week 29, to give you a bit of an understanding on exactly why I want to free hit, and also then how I would navigate game week 30 with the intention of bringing in Mo Salah. So first up, you can see my team going into game week 28 without any transfers. But as we previously discussed, selling Ake to bring in, as we mentioned already, to bring in Zabanije makes a lot of sense for my team. And when he would come into the starting 11, my team would look like this, which I'll be pretty content with. The captaincy being on Solanke, and of course the vice captaincy on Bukayo Saka, subject to his injury. And I'm happy with that. Could take the -4 to bring in Neto if I really think so, but as of right now, that team is pretty good. Now, coming into game week 29, just to give you a bit of an idea on how bad my team is looking, it would look like this. Now, of course, making the Zabanije move makes it a little bit worse because I could have done Doughty, gave myself a Luton player, but still, I have no midfield apart from Son, and I only have 1 forward in Watkins. So straight away, I'm looking at a -8, -12 to get myself just 9 players for game week 29. And even though I think I could own some of the essentials, I could do Haaland to Tony, for example. Again, I would lose lots of value in Haaland. I could then also do Foden to Bowen if I wanted to, and maybe get in another defender. I just don't know whether it is worth it for my personal team in the situation that it is currently in. And also, with the plan of free hitting in 29, I kind of want some carnage. I wouldn't mind it if, for example, Son or Taylor were to get injured after this week, because it throws up an absolute mayhem for those that are planning to not free hit, and it gives us a little bit of an advantage. So this is how my team would look for 29. However, if I plan on free hitting, this would be roughly what my draft would be. So let me just get it into game week 29. This would roughly be my free hit team. Again, it isn't amazing. Ignore the bench. We're just focusing on the starting 11 here. Now, I get it. The upside doesn't look great, but if people are taking -8s or -12s to get close to this team, straight away we've got an 8 or 12 point gain on those managers. And then it's a case of, can the likes of Bailey or Morris or whatever do the business to justify the free hit? So even though it is underwhelming, I do get it. I do think that the fact that managers are taking big points hits to get to this similar team is kind of a benefit in itself. So this will be the team for game week 29. When we come into game week 30 with my team, and again, we need to remind ourselves that you only get one free transfer once you have used a free hit. We would come into this team, 4.1 million, one free transfer available. And the team doesn't look too bad. Zabanya would come in for Taylor, of course. Dubravka, as long as he is still the goalkeeper at Newcastle. And again, that could be a reason why I'm forced to bring in Neto this week if it looks like Nick Pope could return. Team looks okay. The only issue is I do not have Mo Salah at home against Brighton. And that is kind of a priority in the team. So I would look to maybe take a -4 this week, even though it's kind of against what I said. A -4 for Mo Salah against Brighton with Sheffield United the week after, and putting him captain this week, for me, justifies a -4. So how would I go about that? Well, again, kind of against what I said, because I will have to eventually sell premiums. But when you look at this midfield, Son, Palmer, Saka, Foden, you can't just do Garnacho to Salah and still own Haaland. So we have to sell a premium at some point. So it is kind of pick your poison. For me, I think it would have to be Phil Foden, controversially, that would have to sell. So Phil Foden being sold for Mo Salah would look like this. Now, the problem is I still have 9 million that I need to free up, but I'm not really too concerned about that, because what I can do is sell Saliba. Yes, I know they have Luton the following week, but I think maybe going for an Arsenal attacker later on could be a differential. And Gusto is a real consideration for my team, but one that I do want to just raise is Livramento. If Trippier is ruled out long term, Livramento could be a fantastic investment from this point onwards, and also a double game week to be announced. He is on radar, but right now, Gusto would come in and my team would look like this with the captaincy on Mo Salah. And with just a -4, I think my team looks fantastic for this week and for future game weeks. So that's the plan right now, and I'm pretty content on the wildcard later on in the season with the free hit in 29. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's double game week 28 transfer plans. I really hope it's provided some value. If you have any questions, please do let me know in the comment section. As always, I will be sure to answer them. Make sure you do subscribe, drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.